Awesome. So I'll just start talking. Welcome. So this is week 2 now. I can't remember how many. We've done quite a few of these webinars now, but it's kind of we're reaching kind of the final run on the Carbon Hack, the final stretch of the Carbon Hack hack. I'm Asim Hussain. I am the Executive Director of the Green Software Foundation. I'm also Director of Green Software at Intel. I think maybe Henry, do you want to give an intro to yourself, and Doha, Henry, and Dan? Yeah.
Good morning, all. I'm Henry Richardson from WattTime. We're one of the signal providers for the SDK, so we're really excited to be supporting this and enabling both load flex and region flex based on a carbon signal for various types of software and hardware.
Thank you. Doha, do you want to just give a quick intro?
Hi, everyone. You guys have heard a lot from me on Discord. I'm the project manager at GSF, and here to help if there are any questions.
Dan, it's up over to you.
Yeah, can you hear me fine?
Mm-hmm.
Good, okay, so I'm Dan Benita. I work for Havana, which is a member of the GSF, and I'm just a supporting member of the Carbon SDK working group.
Wonderful. Thank you all. So today, we've gone through some of these slides before. Today, we're going to focus more on the pitch and how to prepare some of the stuff, how to prepare your solutions to the final delivery. But right now, we've got Henry only for the first half hour of this webinar. He unfortunately has to drop. So I want to encourage you to ask questions in the panel. Questions specifically for Henry. So questions around, the WattTime data, the methodologies of carbon aware, stuff like that. If you've got questions like that, just fire them away now and fire them away soon, because we've only got Henry for a little bit. We'll pause. It's very small. We should be quite intimate right now, so we'll stop and we'll answer those questions as and when we get them. But this is your opportunity to ask the experts. So Dan's one of the SDK team building the SDK, and Henry's one of the experts on this whole field of kind of demand shifting and electricity, carbon intensive electricity. Okay, and feel free to ask questions to go along. I'll just go through some of the slides. If there's anything, Dan or Henry, that you think we should raise now, I know there's been some questions on Discord, or if any frequently asked questions have been asked, let's raise them as well while Henry's here. Just want to make sure we make sure we've got good use of his time while he's here. Okay, yeah, and oh, have I clicked the wrong button? I have. Let me go get this out of there. Okay, so I think I'll just start off then. Let me make sure I've got all my views up. Yep. So I think I'm on the wrong slide. Oops. Okay, here we go. So yeah, so today I'm going to do an intro. We've got the Q&A with WattTime. We're going to talk a lot about the pitch. I think I might get Doha, might get you to kind of jump online to talk through kind of some of the aspects of the video pitching that we've got. How to manage your projects. I meant giving my intro to myself. I think we all make sure I got it. So yeah, so as we know, like Carbon Hack is all about building software that does more when electricity is green, does less when it's dirty. We've built an API, an SDK API in the foundation called the Carbon API, which is we've worked with WattTime data sets which have been published already. So this is kind of the nature of what we're doing. We've got 3 main prizes. First prize is 40,000, second prize is 25,000, and third prize is 15,000. Thank you very much to our sponsors for all of that support. And there's also going to be $20,000 in prize money, which is going to be handed out to smaller prizes. Most innovative, most polished, most insightful, and also a prize for the biggest impact to the actual SDK itself. We're open to there'll be prizes for people who actually enhance the SDK and enhance the open source project itself. And let me go. Yeah. So we're in the middle of the hacking period. We're right in the middle of it. It is next week. Am I right? Yeah, it's next week, 1 week to go. So hopefully you're all like busy away, you know, focusing on getting your work together. Again, just some reminders on some dates. You know, our goal is to help you get the best solution forward. But the submissions close on the 4th of November. The last of these live sessions will be on the 3rd of November, but the submissions close on the 4th of November. And then we have an event called the Decarbonize software event. This is on the 10th of November. This is where we'll be announcing the winners. It's an online event, starts at 5 p.m. GMT, which is 9 a.m. PT. It's 2 hours. This is the award ceremony, essentially, for Carbon Hack. So if you want to go to that event, it's essentially that link. Someone share it in the chat. But this is essentially where this is hopefully share it out. We're not just going to be announcing the winners of the hackathon. We're going to be talking a lot about the various other advancements in green software that are happening right now. A lot about carbon aware computing. And so this is the event to join to find out not only the award ceremony, but also the other things that are going on, other things you might also be interested in knowing more about. So for instance, one of the things we're announcing is something called a software carbon intensity specification, which is 1.0. Henry actually is the chair of the standards working group in the foundation, has been pivotal in getting that specification ready as well. So a number of things announcing in this event moving forward. Yeah, thank you, Doha. Again, call for questions, you know, fire your questions away if you've got any. If there's no questions right now, what I might do is I might just kind of go, while we've got Henry, let's just cover some of the questions that are in the FAQ that we have right now. So Henry, you did mention there was a question around optimization. Is that something we wanted to cover, or do you think there's something might be useful for people to know about?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We get a lot of questions about like how to best schedule load based on the forecast and the signal. What are some different strategies? And like how to best leverage the kind of information coming out of the API and the SDK. There are also questions about user interface that are linked to that. Like how do you explain to someone what the cleanest and dirtiest times are? Does that seem like a good area to cover a bit?
Let's cover.
Excellent.
Should we also cover? I want to make sure we cover it actually, because it's Apple announced the carbon aware feature yesterday, which I think is quite interesting to cover. Have you seen that, Henry?
I just saw the announcement. It's super exciting. So they're scheduling. So it is in the vein of carbon awareness. They are scheduling when iPhones charge, because I believe it's in the new iOS, based on how clean or dirty the electric grid is at any given time. I read the release notes, and it's super exciting news on that front. Yeah.
If someone wants to quickly create one which charges my laptop when that'd be very interesting. I've been saying that on every call I can for years, just hoping somebody would go and build it for me. So maybe this is the time.
I hope this is the first steps in that direction. We think that that's one of the questions we have is, where does intelligence sit on laptops for BMS battery management systems? Is it in the OS or is it in the manufacturer's BIOS? But we think that's a huge opportunity for load flex for scheduled charging.
Sorry to interrupt.
But that's billions of devices, right? There are many iPhones out there. They're small loads each, but there are a lot of them. To go back to optimization, though, when we think about how to schedule load, we think the forecast is a super valuable tool for doing that, because you can understand, I have 2 or 3 hours of flexibility. Like I can schedule this 1 hour of load across 6 hours, 12 hours, 4 hours. And you can use that forecast to like build a threshold to identify a value above and below which you should charge. And then it can dynamically update. So you can use the forecast to identify a threshold. And then as time progresses, you can compare the real-time value to that forecast. So you get a more kind of sophisticated way of controlling that load.
Because that's related to the idea of what number should I pick, or what threshold. So you want to use your forecast to calculate, because you're going to have to run something anyway. It's not, you can't pause it forever. So use your forecast. You basically want to ask it like, what is the best time? And what is a number? What is the carbon intensity at that time? Is that, yeah.
Exactly. And that's why we recommend using relative intensity if you're within a region. So you don't want, like, some regions might vary from 0 to 1,000, whereas other regions might vary only from 900 to 1,200. And so you can't use hard thresholds because every grid region is dynamic and different. So we think it's really valuable to say, what is the best time you can use energy in your region, even if it's relatively not that clean compared to other regions? So that's one of the reasons we actually have an index in our API, which is, or a percentile. We say, what is this percentile dirtiness of this time compared to other times in this region? So that you can say, oh, it's relatively clean, it's a better time, or actually it's really dirty compared to other times in this region, not compared to all other regions, because often that information isn't actionable. Software may be the one exception.
Okay. You can't drive your car the other side of the country just to start charging it. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. But you do know, oh, right now is relatively clean compared to other times in this region, even if it's still dirty from an absolute sense.
Yeah.
So, and then you can see how that might flow into the user interface where you're like, no one has any idea what 900 pounds of CO2 means. But if you say 900 is a relatively clean time right now, that is a much more valuable information to a consumer if you're thinking about consumer-facing apps, and a dial or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody always it's kind of one of the constant questions I get, because we have things like the Energy Star rating and other kind of ratings, kind of A to F, or I don't know where it is right now. Because people do need that kind of like indication of what is a good number and what is a bad number. But I see where you're coming from. It's like you'll be able to say, like, this is relatively a good number for this region in this given time. Yeah, that makes
and so you
sense.
should act now. Now is an opportunity to act.
Yeah.
Okay. And that might be you're supporting natural gas instead of coal, or you're shifting from natural gas to renewables. So you want to take advantage of all of those opportunities that you can.
One thing I was going to add there, Henry, just to keep it concrete as well, is I think we've got a PR at the moment in the code repository with a Jupyter notebook. So one of those kind of all-in-one file demo scripts, which takes the readings for a whole day or something like that and puts it on a graph. And so I think what's interesting there is that when you're able to visualize the data, potentially you can start thinking about patterns, and then you can maybe work out the threshold that you're talking about. So obviously in the future, maybe people can come up with ways of calculating this automatically and saying the average for today is that much. So if you're below that average, you're good. If you're above that average, you're bad. And that kind of gives you a way of, per region, understand what that threshold is going to be, so you can quickly and efficiently assess what that is. Because it's true that otherwise you look at the number and you're like, what is this number? What does it even mean? Should I wait? Should I do it now? I think at home we've got solar panels, and there's always that question of when can we put the washing machine? And you put the washing machine on, and boom, you've got clouds coming up. And nowadays the days are so short that it gets harder and harder to really find the right time. I mean, obviously it's a good problem to have, but it's an interesting one. Every time we think about, like, how do we make sure? So it's a very black and white situation. Whereas in this case, you've got the data, you can just average it, and you can kind of like know the right time, and then you know that you couldn't have done it better, because at some point you do need to run that thing. So in case that helps people, there's one pull request somewhere in the repo, and we don't have that many open at the moment, so you should be able to find it quickly. It's the one at the bottom, and in there's that Jupyter notebook. Feel free to play with it and try it. We haven't merged it yet, but obviously we think it's a good resource for people to visualize and really understand concretely what the measurements are and what that threshold should be. Sorry, back to you guys.
That's really cool. We've actually, so that assumes you need to consume power half of the time if you're using the median value. We've also seen people say, oh, I only need to consume power 25% of the time. So they pick a lower threshold to force them into cleaner periods. So you can actually dynamically adjust the threshold based on kind of your specific device or software constraints. And so there's some really interesting things that can be done there. we also have some partners who create very sophisticated objective functions where they're taking in multiple data streams like price and emissions, and they can actually more dynamically, even than that threshold, adjust the operation. So we're really excited to see kind of different approaches to optimizing how to consume electricity, both within regions and across regions.
Well, I watched, do you know the Hot Carbon conference that was on earlier on this year in, oh, it was like it was more of an academic conference. It was like a real academic conference where they were actually just talking through papers. I think it was I can't remember which West Coast US university. And in one of those talks, I just want to throw this out there. I want to see what your thoughts are, because I've actually been re-quoting it without verifying with you. But one of those talks, they spoke about in terms of forecasting and what gives you the best reduction. What kind of length of flexibility do you need to get the best reductions potentials? And the number they came out with was 6 hours. And I think it's a number I've been quoting a lot as well, which is from their studies. This is more from a data center perspective. They're looking at data center time shifting within a data center. They said about 6 hours. If you can flex for 6 hours, that gives you your maximum return on carbon investment. If you can flex for longer than that, you get diminishing returns. And if you do less than that, then you get, well, obviously less returns as well. Like, that sounds like the peak of the curve is about 6 hours. Do you have any thoughts on that? Or is that some, is it other data to?
That's a really interesting question. We have done some thinking about this. And of course, the more flexibility the longer the window, we call it, that you can flex load in, of course, more savings you can get because you have more opportunities. But there we see a fall off after about 12 hours.
Right. Okay.
So it's in that same like half a day to a day-ish range. And that's really because you can start to pick up on diurnal patterns like solar. So if you can schedule your load anytime in a day, you can pick up the excess solar in the middle of the day, or there might be excess wind at night. So getting that much stretch gives you a lot of advantage. I'm actually going to.
Do you want to share something?
I could quickly share a little graph.
Yeah, go for it. I think that'd be very useful. Do I have to stop sharing?
Unfortunately, yes.
That's fine. Actually, I think if you shared now, I've said multiple people can share. I don't know what that actually does. So let's figure out what that happens.
Seems to work.
Okay.
Can you see that okay?
Oh no, I actually can't see. I'm going to stop sharing my screen to make sure.
Oh, okay.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, I can see it.
So this is just a really simple chart showing, let's say you had an hour of flexible load and you could schedule it in different window lengths. How much savings could you achieve? How much emissions reduction as a percentage could you achieve in that grid region? And some grid regions like MISO don't have a lot of variability, so there's not a lot of load flex opportunity. But other regions, there's a huge opportunity for savings. And so you can see this 12-hour fall off. Like, there's probably not a lot of advantage to creating more flexibility beyond that, but definitely below that, you see a lot of value. As you can edge up the amount of flex you have.
Yeah, that's very useful, actually. That is interesting. It's kind of like where the graph is still going up. I suppose it's like, I don't know how you'd make that choice, like the inflection point of I don't know, actually. My mind's not with it today. But I
know, but there's a point at which the diminishing returns. For additional effort, you're not getting a lot more savings.
I was actually thinking about batteries again, because I realized that as you were talking, I realized one aspect of batteries that's quite interesting is that it's a defined load. You're not going to consume more than the battery contains. So like, I know that my phone will charge in, I actually don't know, maybe like an hour. It's less than an hour, I reckon. Which is somewhat different sometimes from like compute load. Like it's challenging for us to know like how much electricity a compute load will actually consume. We can measure it after it happened, but to kind of predict the energy load of a compute is kind of interesting. Yeah, so the battery is different. Yeah,
EVs are pretty similar because you have a pretty good idea how the vehicle knows how much charge it needs and how quickly it's charging. So it says, oh, that's going to be 2 hours of charge. And I know you usually unplug at 8 a.m. the next day. That's 12 hours. I can move those 2 hours anywhere in that 12 hours. And so I assume phones would be a similar approach as well.
Yeah.
I'll pass it back to you though.
Cool. Do you know, actually, I wanted to just, we're just going to have a chat now. So I was actually had a really interesting conversation with a big organization recently who were quite advanced in their thinking around measuring. And it's something I think, Henry, you and I have spoken about a number of times before, kind of this tension there exists between measuring things. And this is kind of why the SCI was kind of one of the reasons born, was kind of resolve this tension, because there's, measuring for like the greenhouse gas protocol kind of is one tension, and the SCI were trying to go with something else. And I just wanted to, and I think average versus marginal is kind of like has that tension as well. And they just use a really wonderful term that I'm now spending all of my time repeating this term, because if I repeat it enough, it'll just become like a thing. So they use this term, which is measuring for reporting and measuring for action. And I really love that expression of what it is that we're trying to do here, because you can measure for reporting, and then as soon as you measure for reporting, you've got regulatory issues, there's all these other constraints you need to kind of like think about. But measuring for reporting, measuring for action is very different. And it's one of the things we spoke about at the start. And I think that also relates to average versus marginal. Should we spend a little time, because that comes up constantly in my world.
I think average and marginal fall really well into those categories as well. Measuring for, I think someone recently phrased it as the average is really good for apportioning responsibility and spreading out emissions amongst all the actors. Mm-hmm. And so that's a good way for like measuring for reporting. And then measuring for action is marginal, answers the question, if I consume electricity right now in this place, how much emissions will it cause? And can I make a better choice by either waiting to consume that power or consuming that power in a different place? And you can see the tension between reporting and action in those cases. We, as the Green Software Foundation, have kind of staked out a position that we care a lot about action and in giving tools to developers to make choices that help the whole atmosphere, not just your organization. And I think there's a underlying motivation at WattTime. Now we're getting a little philosophical to move reporting closer to action at some level. Like, can we help make action, reporting more actionable as well, to align those incentives?
I think this is something that we're going to explore and hopefully raise awareness of. I think that's what we need to do over the next, next year at least or so, like really help raise awareness of this, because I think this is really what we're trying to do. And this is why the API right now is marginal. This solution that has been built, that Dan's been working on, is a marginal based solution. So it's all about taking action to reduce emissions. So yeah, I think that philosophy is very important to kind of spread. All right, should we move on? I'll just start sharing my slides again. If there's anything else you guys want to raise, feel free to raise your hand. But that was a really good chat. Henry, there we go.
We should probably get back to some of the practical issues facing some of the hackathon participants here.
Yeah, okay, yeah. We'll go forward. I know you've got to drop soon anyway. Thank you, Henry. So, let me get my speaker notes up. Here we go. So judging criteria, we covered this last week, but again, there are 3 criteria for judging. It's going to be judged on vision, feasibility, and impact. And just as a reminder, the projects must utilize the carbon aware, the open source project that we have. You can use the API, the SDK, and the API, or just the API. It's absolutely fine. I suppose you could just use the SDK without the API, but I don't know what use that would be. But as long as you use the open source project in some way, that's the main criteria. So what do we mean by vision? So judges want to be inspired. They're looking for innovation. There really aren't that many examples of carbon aware computing right now. That's why we're so excited to see what everybody's building. There's some of the solutions that people are coming up with are things I've never thought of before in my entire life. So to score well in vision, know how your project compares to other carbon aware projects out there, and really what sets it apart from everything else, and kind of what is your vision for the future? Like, how does this help meet the challenge that we're all facing? In terms of feasibility, you're not going to create well, it's unlikely that you're going to create like a fully finished kind of products by the end of this hackathon. So we're really looking for like a really compelling proof of concept, prototype, not usually a fully working solution. It does everything you really want to accomplish. Judges are going to evaluate you by where you are right now, how far it will take to get to a minimum viable product from there. Really improve your chances to score well here by making sure your pitch and video just really offer good indications on implementation roadmap and requirements to get your project to production, and to add any future features to realize your vision. So your feasibility. And what do you mean by impact? Can your project make a real difference in this world? Now, that doesn't mean that you can have projects which won't have a lot of consumers, but each user will have a really high impact. You can have products which won't have a huge amount of impact, but just got such a breadth of user base that overall it'll have a big impact. So you can think about it in multiple dimensions, but it's really the impact. Projects that provide convincing evidence of impact will receive high impact scores from the judges. And yeah, so again, like, it doesn't really, each use of your solution doesn't have to remove gigatons from the atmosphere, but it can be small impact with lots of different people. That's kind of like the impact aspects of it that you're going to be judged on. Textual pitch. So you're going to have to submit two things when you submit the hackathon solution. You're going to have to submit a text pitch and also a video pitch. And Doha will come on later on to talk about the video pitch, because we've got a wonderful offer for all of you. We're going to have we're offering you professionally made video pitches. We have a video producer who we've hired to give you the opportunity. But in terms of the textual pitch, describe the problem you're trying to solve. That's what you want to do with the textual pitch. Talk about in terms of the problem you're trying to solve. Don't just go straight into, this is my solution, this is how it works, the technical details. Talk about the problem. Describe what your project does, exactly in layperson's terms. Don't assume the person who's going to be reading this is going to have like a lot of deep tech knowledge, or even a lot of knowledge in carbon computing. Explain it like they're five. It's all. I use my strategy for everything. Explain it like you're five, because you won't go wrong. Describe how it uses the API and the SDK. Like, help us understand it. We don't want to read your code to kind of figure out. Describe how it uses the API SDK. Describe how impactful it might be in terms of carbon reductions and user reach. Example of, as I said before, like, as I said, like, you can have low reach, low reduction, but high reach can actually overall have a really big impact reduction. But you can have low reach and high reduction, and so you can just help us understand, like, how does your project work in those dimensions. Describe how feasible it is for you to get to a production ready state with a bit of time, or perhaps with the prize money. Help us understand, like, how you're going to use the prize money to get to the end state. Or maybe use your prize money. Well, yeah, describe that. That'd be useful. How feasible would it be for others to implement? How likely is it that they would choose to use your tool if it was made available? Let me get my screen back. And also, like, describe, what your vision is for how the solution, you've started in a hackathon, and how it could really make a difference in the world. Like, help us understand your vision. Like, what are you trying to accomplish here? And finally, not finally, 7, make sure to include the URL to the prototype app or your code, so it's very, very clear for us to see this. And then finally, like, the link to the video page. And all of this should actually appear on your Taikai project page on your website. So we need that page to be updated with this information. That's the actual page the judges will review. You won't be providing us any other links. You'll just be they'll just be looking at that page. Make sure to update that page. And the video page should be like a YouTube video. Well, I don't know if we're specifically saying a YouTube one, but if you're one of ours, it probably will be a YouTube one. So maybe Doha, do you want to jump in, talk about video pitch?
Yeah, just quick thing about the textual pitch. So if you started your project like a while back, you published it on Taikai, the template that's on there is the old template. we've updated the template, but we can't update the projects that have been published a while back. So please make sure that the questions that you answer are the ones that you just saw. I posted it on Discord, and it's also in the update section on Taikai. That's just an important thing to mention. The video pitch. Do you want to explain what it is, and I'll explain the professional editing that they'll get? You're on mute.
Thank you. Awesome. So yeah, thank you for that correction. So for the video pitch, you have two strict requirements. It can be no longer than it's 2 minutes max. If you give us more than 2 minutes, we're going to strip the rest out. So it's going to be the first 2 minutes. The link to the video will have to be submitted alongside your project page on Taikai by midnight, 4th of November. Doha, is that midnight GMT or mid? Say again, sorry. PT. So midnight PT. Yeah, West Coast US PT, midnight, November the 4th of November. To get everything ready and submitted on there. If you submitted afterwards, we won't be able to consider you. For the rest, it's really up to you. But we recommend structuring the video into four parts. The problem, describe your problem, the solution, what you accomplished, and finally, what you're planning to do next. So you describe the problem, you describe the ideal solution, you describe like what you accomplished in the ideal solution and what you want to do next with it. So you have 2 minutes for those 4 topics. We suggest deciding about 30 seconds for each topic, but you're free. You can be more flexible than that. You can do actually whatever you want, but this is just what we recommend. When showing the demo, we recommend, not doing like a detailed walkthrough. Focus on the kind of the 2 or 3 features that you think are the most useful. Remember, the judges are reviewing a lot of pitches, so keep it focused, and that's going to give you best chances. Doha, do you want to go into?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Next slide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So as Asim mentioned, we have a professional video editor that we're working with, and we're offering this to we have 30 slots available for this offer, and there are some requirements that you have to fulfill to be able to get this, and it is that you have to have your project published with a and at least 1 paragraph with bullet points for the pitch. We'll be checking all that. Later today, you'll get an email with a link with more details and a link to Matt, who's the professional editor, to his Calendly. You can book your slot there. The slots start on the 30th of October, and it's a 30-minute slot that you is that in a way that it's recorded live, so you'll talk on camera and he'll screen record it and he'll plug it into a video that edited in the way that that he's done it. So I think, and if you do cancel, if you don't give 24-hour notice so that someone else can take your slot, your project will be disqualified. I think that's about it. Oh, and this is the link to book your book the slot. I'll put it in the chat.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Dara. Thanks for arranging it. Yeah, so your video is going to be the best way you can present this to the judges. So we want to make sure you have the best. Give the best. Put your best foot forward, really. And I believe the way it's going to do it is that you're going to turn up to a 30-minute meeting, and you should have your pitch ready, should have your deck ready to that meeting. That's how you're going to get the best advantage of it. And he'll maybe give you, you'll have quite a few like runs, won't you? Yeah. And then he's going to he's going to do the final editing to get it together. But yeah, make sure you get everything ready for it.
All done within those 30 minutes. I mean, if you're not ready and it's not completed, you can't reschedule it for another time. So please make sure that you are completely ready with everything for that session.
Yeah. We have to be quite strict with this because these sessions do cost quite a lot. And if you book a slot, it means you're really stopping somebody else from booking a slot. So we want to make sure everybody gets the fairest chance with the video editing. And it starts on Monday. So Monday, Tuesday, Friday are the only days. So I recommend getting slotted in early. The stuff.
I must say, it's a fantastic opportunity, Asim, that video editing support.
Yeah. I know how hard it is to make videos. It's really hard. So, let's get some professionals in to do it. So yeah. And yeah, again, just we don't asking for, you'd have to be finished by the time you book. You'd have to be finished by the time you book the slot. But as Doha has said, your project must be published. It must have a description, and you don't have to finish a text pitch, but show us that you've given some thought into this area and you've put at least a paragraph together. That's what you need to book. By the time you actually start, you do need to have your pitch ready. So yeah. This I think there's been some questions, haven't there, Doha, about kind of project management and kind of see some of these things. Do you want to drive this slide? Do you have the notes in front of you, or do you want me to read them out? I can read it out.
Yeah.
It's
11.
Okay.
My brain is a bit slow now.
Okay, no worries. So just say because she's a project manager. So how do you project manage, a project like this? So really, and I think it's how I list the milestones and suggest target dates. I always like to go kind of backwards personally. And this actually, we do a lot of our work in the foundation. We decide when we're going to do something. We decide what is the milestone for it. What are the things we need to get done for that date? And then we go backwards and figure out if we want to achieve that by that date, what are the things we need to do now to hit that milestone? So that's kind of how I work and how we work in the foundation. So list the definite milestones, when you need your pitch ready, when you need your video ready, when you need your proof of concept ready, and kind of work backwards from there. Suggest, like estimate how long it might take to do each element, to get your pitch ready, your video ready, just really try and estimate some of that stuff. Break down, what is essential from what is desirable. Like it's really, when you're thinking about this stuff, you can go off in different directions, and it's good to do so, to explore your mental space to figure out what's possible. But you really do need to get down to the pragmatic sense, because there's not a lot of time, and kind of cut out the fluff and what is the core stuff you need to get involved, need to do. Yeah, make sure you complete all the essentials before starting the desirables. I know you want to do the desirables, but do the essentials first. Make a list of all the risks to the project and plan what to do if it's failing, if it's falling behind. Maybe you want to ask for help if you need some more help, from us, from friends, on Discord, on social media, things like that. So make a list of the risks and plan for what to do if you're falling behind. Like some things just take longer than other things sometimes. Sometimes you think a pitch is going to take you an hour, it takes you a day. Think of the risks and think of some backups, because we have a hard deadline. That's what's going to cause you the stress, is that hard deadline. Try and get feedback from people at least once before each milestone is submitted. You can assume that everything is clear, everything works, but another fresh pair of eyes can really give you some insight and just highlight things. Oh, it's not clickable, things like that. It's really obvious things can just come to the front if just somebody who's not been involved in your project just takes a look at it. And just really, that's why we're putting so much care and effort into making sure you understand how your projects are going to be judged, how they're going to be measured, because really think through now, if that's how I'm going to be measured, does my project, does my pitch, does my video answer all those questions? That's why it's kind of going backwards. This is how you're going to get judged. Are you answering all those questions effectively? That's kind of some suggestions we have on project managing this project. I say the big thing is to define the milestones and work backwards. right? Define the milestones and work backwards. And also think about the pitching and the criteria, judging criteria. That's what it's all about. That's really what you have to, that's really the problem that you're solving. And again, like all projects are submitted via a pitch, this video pitch and this text pitch, excuse me, both by midnight PT, November the 4th. And you really have to wow the judges. Like, again, they're going to be viewing a lot of pictures right now. So just, that's why we put in the video pictures, really put some effort into this and wow them.
One more thing just to quickly mention is that there is a software designed PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, yep.
That you can use. So there's a link in the resource tab. You're welcome to use that. You're welcome to use your own as long as you stick to the questions and answer those however you want to present it.
Awesome, thank you. And I think that's,
I was going to say,
go on then.
Oh, sorry, Asim. No, so it's just because I was going to still talk about a couple of slides back where you're talking about the different steps. I was going to say the tip about discussing it with others is really going to be helpful for the pitch, because it's going to help you the same way you were talking about the thing where, oh, people were expecting you to be able to click a button. Why is it not something so simple? I think it's the same thing about talking about the ideas with other people. You understand what interests them, how they look at it. You know, when you're deep into something, when you've been like evolving, sometimes you just need to be able to take a step back, and talking to other people give you that way of taking a step back and really understanding. Then when you want to focus your pitch, what are the things you need to focus on to really get the message across in an efficient way and in an impactful way. And so I really like that you've put that point in there, because, you know, I feel like every time you're not working on the project and you're out with friends or talking to your parents or to your children or to your spouse or anything like that, just feel, you know, do give it a quick go to just have a discussion about it, and it will help you really refine the scope of what you're working on, but also understand what is really important right now, what could be next in, you know, once you've done this and once you've submitted it and, you know, the hackathon finishes, what could be next immediately. You know, we didn't have time to do this, but still need this to get into a kind of like production state or when it's going to basically give the best value in a quick way. And then, you know, what might come in the future, but that you obviously can't focus on right now, maybe once that thing has like started flying a little bit more, basically. So yeah, sorry, but back at you.
That's good.
Asim.
That's good advice. Have you ever read a book called The Mom Test? Have you heard of the book called The Mom Test? Have you heard this? No?
No, but that sounds interesting.
It was about 10 years ago, I think. I think it's actually a real book now. When I was originally given it, it was just somebody had written like essentially a very long thought piece on the startup culture of like they call the Mom Test, which is that when it's about getting feedback for your product idea and stuff like that, and how like if you ask your mum about some project idea of yours, they'll probably be like, oh, that's a really good idea, well done, oh, you're so clever. Whereas you don't really want that. You want real feedback. You want I always say this saying, like, listen to the no's. Like it's really hard as human beings to like search for negative feedback for something that we've put our hearts and souls into, but is some of the most important feedback you can get is listen to the no's and listen for the no's, because the no's are sometimes very subtle. No one will say to you no, but they might look confused when you're trying to explain your product. And that's a really important feedback. To take that feedback is not a problem. If someone's confused, it's not their fault, it's your fault. So, you know, you really have to like have a, you know, yeah, I really like that the in terms of feedback, just there. Yeah.
I think that's a really good point. And also that's, you know, relating to talking to a lot of people about that stuff. I think the idea is that the earlier you ask, the lower you fall from. You know, if somebody's going to give you feedback that actually is going to kill your idea or really question it or really help you understand that, you know, how do you justify the value, the earlier you get this, the quicker you can how do you say, correct your direction in small steps rather than having to take a big change. You know, I'm going to give a very silly example, and I do that a lot. But you know, it's as if you say, I want to go to Rome, and you start going in directions of New York. When you're going to have to pivot, there's quite a lot of stuff to change. Sorry, if you come from Europe, you're going to have to pivot quite significantly. Whereas if you start the moment you start, let's say, leaving Paris, I'm French, so I'll take that example, and people tell you it's this way, then you haven't lost as much.
Earlier,
So yeah, it's the earlier the better. And also the wider you ask, the more significant the feedback will be, because you know, the same as the mom test, if you keep asking on the same person, one person will have one idea. They may not be interested in lots of other things, so the feedback will probably be not repetitive, but always for the same kind of a domain. Whereas if you get a chance to ask from different people with different backgrounds, they'll have different things that they're interested in, and don't forget to ask your mom as well, because she'll probably have some feedback still, you know. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it's actually how the foundation functions, and fundamentally, like, we run via consensus for a lot of our projects. So we are forced to get feedback from, and it's challenging sometimes, but once you adopt and that strategy, you get a lot of really good feedback. It's challenging sometimes, we get some really very good feedback. We have a question from Gina. Asim mentioned that we need to submit the written pitch on the project's Taikai page, because that's the place where the judges will read the information. So should everything be there, or can I put a summary and link, for instance, on a website that has a longer explanation? I think the only thing the judges are really can be guaranteed to read is what's on the Taikai website. If you link people out, I can't guarantee. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I can't. I'm not even going to tell them not to. But I'm just going to say the best bet is to keep everything on the Taikai website. You've got a textual pitch area there. You've got the video. If there's more information you want to put it somewhere else. But there's no guarantee that anybody's going to read it or watch it. That's what I'll say. Dan, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to add something as well. I think, you know, those people are going to be watching a lot of different things. Sometimes things are going to potentially be a little bit similar. And so it's all about catching their attention. And so the more complicated you make it, you know, for example, having to go to a different place, the less likely they might go all the way to what you're expecting them to reach. You know, it's a bit like you get somewhere and people, you know, ask you a question and you say, but did you read my memo of 500 pages? It was on the very last page. It was the most important piece of what I wanted you to know. I think that, you know, it's the same here. The idea is the idea of the 2-minute speech is really to get the person interested. And when I say the person, I mean the judges, and for them to really feel like, oh, actually, I want to know more. And that's the point where they potentially will read what's on the page that's immediately there. If in the video you've got a QR code that takes them to a website to show them a live demo of what you've done, maybe that works as well. But you know, it's all about like trying to catch their attention, trying to interest them in wanting to know more, and also trying to interest them in thinking, you know, this is really good. This is unique, you know, and also I really understand what's happening. And everything I read kind of like comforts me in the idea that this is really interesting, this is good, this is ticking all the boxes that have been listed in the judges' criteria, and therefore it's, you know, that's the idea that should win, which is hopefully what you're all looking for, on top of, you know, helping the environment and helping everybody doing better with sustainability and greener software. So yeah, so think about think sales. I think that there's a point in your project where you have to stop thinking about idea and thinking sales. I remember doing an internship once, and they had a great thing, and they were going public after 25 years of running the company. And I remember what the CEO told me at the time. He said, you know, we made a mistake at the beginning. We focused on the technology. We didn't focus on the marketing, and we've done that way too late. And that's why we're only going public 25 years later after having opened the company, and not a lot closer to the beginning. Sometimes we forget, you know, sometimes we forget that it's also about sales. It's also about conveying the message and making sure that you touch as the point where people are interested. And that's also why sometimes, you know, something comes out, it does amazingly well, and you think, but I've seen that before. And the thing is, you may have seen that before, but not enough people saw it before. But through that new pitch, through that new company who's managed to really, get the essence of what the pain, we often talk about solving a pain. Then that's how it took off, and that's how they became successful. So again, focus on the sales side of things, maybe at when you get closer to the pitch, but maybe from the beginning.
Yeah.
Think backwards.
Yeah, good. Yeah, think backwards. Good. Yeah, good advice. We have another question. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just whether a video needs to be made public on YouTube. No, it doesn't. As long as you can make it so that we can view it, then that's fine.
Yeah, I think the term is unlisted.
Yeah.
So it's public, but it's not something that people can just stumble upon without having the stumble. Sorry, I don't know what the right word is. Stumble upon without the right link.
Yeah. As long as you don't make it private. Don't try and make it private and try and somehow, if you get the judge's email addresses, add them as permission. Just keep it unlisted. That'll be the best way. Because I presume it sounds like you don't. Maybe you have like lots of videos on your feed that you actually create. You don't want to have like one of ours. But if you do it through ours, I believe Doha, if you use our service, it's going to be published through our YouTube channel. So we'll be publishing it through there publicly. Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah. If you don't want to publish it on your own YouTube channel, feel free to message me, and I'll do it through ours, through GSFs, and give you the link to it. So, and you can add that to your project.
Okay, cool. I think we've gone through all the material. I think that if there's no more questions in the Q&A, I think we've answered all of them. Maybe let's give people 7 minutes back of their day. So again, really excited to have you all here. Thank you all for taking part in the hackathon, and good luck. One more week to go. I'm really excited to see what you come up with. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.